Hi there. I'm Igor Ledochowski, the co-founder of the Hypnosis Training Academy and author of the world's best-selling trainings on conversational hypnosis. I believe that anyone who wants to be a force for good in the world through the power of hypnosis should have the opportunity to do so, which is why I've made the classical foundational conversational hypnosis professional hypnotherapy program available for you for free right here. So, if you want to become a better communicator and use hypnosis to uplift people around you, inspire them, and enhance the lives of those who you care about during normal everyday conversations, then this training is for you. Enjoy.
Your job, when this starts acting up and telling you, look away now, you're being weird, or this is getting too emotional, or too intense, or even if you're doing it with the opposite sex, thinking like, ooh, right? Those thoughts will come to you, whether you're male or female. There will be clients, and it's called countertransference, and you will go, oh my God, this person is just, oh, it's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to the people who are hypnotherapists. And if you have seen enough patients over enough period of time, it will happen to you. Luckily, it doesn't happen with every patient, but it will at some point happen. And it is, in my book, one of the worst things, one of the worst violations is if you sleep with one of your patients, and it's just bad, right? Really bad. If you do, then please don't talk to me again, because in my opinion, it's a violation because someone is coming to you in a vulnerable state and you're taking advantage of that. Now, if you meet the same patient a year later and everything's just changed and done and dusted, it's a totally different story. But I can't even begin to tell you how bad it would be if you actually slept with a patient there. So this is particularly important for those situations. Why? Because those feelings you might get with male-female are a variation of what you're getting now anyway, which is basically this kicking back in again. And you need to get more of this, so much of this that it drowns out any other sensation, any other feeling, any other thought. Because you're there, and if you can't do that, do not work with that person. It will not be ethical for you to work with that person. If you can't keep yourself out of that, then just apologize. I'm very sorry, but there are circumstances which means I can't work with you. It doesn't mean you're not a good hypnotic subject. It just means I know another therapist. I'll be better for you, and in your best interest, allow me to refer you on. Okay? That is the only ethical thing you can do. Does that make sense to you guys? I really want to emphasize this because this is a really important point. Aside from that, you've all felt the power of just looking at someone. Isn't that weird? It's like you pay lots of money, I'm going to get the secret of Hypno Man. Yeah! Look at them. Huh? But it's not as easy as it sounds, is it? I mean, what kind of other experiences did you guys have? Go ahead. You've got the microphone already.
I had an interesting experience.
Can you just pause a moment? Everyone else who wants to ask or say something, just put your hands up so our microphones can be brought around whilst we're doing this. Carry on.
Interesting experience when I was connecting with my right eye. I felt like the connection was extremely deep, almost like soul-to-soul type of connection. When we were connecting with my less dominant eye, it was still kind of there, but it was almost as though I was watching it almost like half a step removed.
Okay. So you're noticing that there's differences when you do things as well as when you did with other people. Where are all the microphones gone? There's one up there.
Igor?
There's one up here. Oh, okay, we've got them more. Okay, that's fine. Carry on.
Yeah, I noticed two things. The first thing was after about 5 minutes, it seemed that our breathing began to match each other. And then I had like an eye method experience where, because I was focused on his eye, I began to see you talk to one of your microphone persons. I began to see movements that everybody was making, and I had a lot of peripheral vision, and I was seeing everything in detail.
Did anyone else get to start getting this thing? Okay. Now, believe it or not, and those of you who've trained in NLP or something like that, people can go for weeks to seminars, teach them this perceptual acuity, and people go, oh, but I can't see stuff. And it's natural. If you create the right context, you can do it automatically. So you don't have to try and do it. You do something like this, and your body naturally acclimatizes. Right? Did any of you actually have some of the other things, some strange hypnotic phenomena like hallucinations? Maybe the person started looking really old or like really young. Yeah? Really, really old. Did you see maybe someone who is clean shaven suddenly have a beard or something like that, or like dark shadows or the opposite?
The whole lower half of his face just kind of blurred. All I saw was the eye.
All right.
And then everything looked like it was in negative in the background.
this is a very common experience. Let me share a story, if I may, at this point. Back when I was first getting into doing hypnosis and I started doing it professionally for the first time, one of my first clients was my brother. He's actually my older brother. And you can imagine all the things going on there. He's the guy who's always been looking after me, the guys who've got all the cool trends, the guy I'm always like following the footsteps of. And now I'm empty hypnotizing him. I was like, oh Christ, what am I going to do with this? So I sent him, it was for a stop smoking session, so I sent him off to basically smoke a pack of cigarettes outside. That was partly as part of the aversion thing, because you smoke a lot of cigarettes, it's like, you don't want any more. But it's actually also partly for me to do some self-hypnosis to get myself ready for it. Seriously, because I was like, oh, this is hard, right? So I do this for like half an hour because it's outside for ages. A pack of cigarettes takes a long time to smoke, right? So he comes back looking a little green in the face, and I'm like doing my best impression of Erickson. I'm just sitting there like totally spaced out, going, just sit in that chair. I even got a slight American accent. I like look at him, and I start doing this, and I have no idea to this day what I said, but all I know is that my perception of my brother distorted so much, it was just like weird stuff starting happening, and he just dropped like a stone. He has never smoked a cigarette since, right? Thank you. It's a long time ago, but thank you anyway. But the point is, that's, again, something that I needed to do to be able to do the work I'm doing. Now, do you notice how the things you're learning here have multiple functions? The same thing helps you do different things at the same time, right? Going back to what Rashid said earlier on, if you do find yourself having an inappropriate response whilst doing some of this with a patient in particular, then do more of it. Then do you pass through the actual, you know, I want this person, or I don't like this person, or whatever it is. Do more of it so that you get straight to the H+. So all that's left is, this is my task. This is what I'm doing. And you're so absorbed by that, that it just, the rest becomes automatic. It's kind of strange to explain it, but I think you guys have enough of an experience to know what I mean by that. You kind of lose yourself in the process of what you're doing. Does that kind of make sense? So this is a recommendation I make to all of you. Now that you've had a small experience of this, for the rest of this week, for the rest of this seminar, and hopefully continuing on into the rest of your life, if at any point you have some insecurity about what you're doing in terms of the exercise and the certification, right? Do this. Do this to such an extent that you can't think about anything else. And then stuff will come out of you that, you've already noticed this yesterday, stuff started coming out of you when you least expected it. That was pretty impressive, wasn't it? Well, this will get you more of that. Does that make sense? Any other comments, questions? Oh, there's one back there.
A follow-up to what he said.
Say again?
A follow-up to what he said.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that when I looked at David's left eye,
Mm-hmm.
it was as if I was looking at his eye and
Mm-hmm.
missing him.
Mm-hmm.
But when I looked at his other eye,
Mm-hmm.
which mathematically is, you know, the same distance and
Mhm,
everything, I saw and felt his entire being. And I don't know, was that because of his dominance or because of mine, or what was that about?
Who knows? No, I'm serious. Who knows? All I know is that I've had this similar experience, which is why I didn't go down this whole you have to do one eye thing. I'm sure that you guys are right in terms of a preponderance, in terms of most people you meet will be this way. But what it really comes down to is, what are your instincts telling you, right? Even if it's a personal thing, if you're missing him, you know, you have the sense of like, I'm disconnected whilst doing it with one particular eye, then you're not going to be effective as a therapist because you don't have access to all the things you have when you are connected with someone, right? So either way, you still have to do what you need to do to feel connected to the other person. Does that make sense to you guys? So thank you. That's a great point. Who's got the microphone at the moment? Go ahead.
I was going to say, back to Rashid's point, some of the original studies done into eye contact found that people did actually fall in love, complete strangers, whilst doing the eye contact exercise. And actually some...
Please keep looking. Just don't look away. Carry on.
Some even got married after...
Steady on, guys. Go on.
A few of them even got married
Yeah.
after the
After the
exercise.
study.
After
So people actually got
meeting-
married after doing
yeah,
this.
after meeting themselves for
Wow.
within 8 minutes.
All right. Please, can I have that camera a moment? This is not about hypnotic seduction, okay, guys? It may be fun, but let's go a little bit beyond that, all right? But yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised at all. Let's stay over here a little bit. I haven't felt the love over here for a while.
Tantra seminar, and one of the first
Is it on?
One of the first exercises we did was we had to sit in front of a woman, and she had to tell us through number ratings how connected we were with her. And we went through 9 women that day, 9 totally different women, because a woman has the intuitive ability to tell if you are on her plane. And what she would do was sit there, and we would get the gauge. She would pose us according to what appealed to her, and then we would look at her, and then she could tell us by rating us 1 to 10 if we were connecting, and then as we would not connect or we would drift away, she would bring me back and bring me back. And by the end of those 7 to 9 women that day, you could sit down and within 5 minutes connect up with her, and then she would rate you at 7 to 10 or whatever. And it was a brilliant exercise. So, you know, with the guy thing is one thing, because we had to do that the next day with men. But the ability of a woman to tell if you're connected is just monumental in your ability to connect, period.
I actually agree. As a rule, I think that women are a little bit more capable, shall we say, of sensing their own emotions, and this is something that you deal with your emotions. Now, it doesn't mean that you boys can't do the same thing. It means that, well, first of all, some of you will be naturally more capable than others anyway, but even those of you who think like, oh, I can't really tell, it's just a question of practice. Because let me tell you, that was me. I was Mr. Anally Retentive Lawyer Boy for a long, long time, and when I first came across things like this, I went like, this is pants. What am I doing here? I'm looking, or whatever, right? I had nothing. Everyone's going about this, all this woo-woo, like, yeah, I felt connection, and it's like, you know, like, huh? What are these guys on about? It took me years, and in somewhere, I don't know, I can't even tell you when it clicked, but it took me years to click, and now I can just tell. It's just like, yeah, I'm there, or like, no, I'm not there yet, and oh, there we go, it just happened, right? I don't know where it comes from. So, sure, I think if you work with a female partner, getting feedback is great, and realize that all of you will get it if you just do it. Okay? Go ahead.
When I was working with Jeffrey, when I'd look at his right eye, it seemed like I would hit a wall and his smile would go away.
Interesting.
And when I would look at his left eye, he would just, it was like he would just exude with love. We had like a soul-to-soul connection.
Wow.
And then as soon as I'd look back to his right eye, I'd hit a wall and his smile would go away.
So you see, you find whatever works for you. And that doesn't take long, does it? Can you guys just leave it at mic like a second? How long did it take you to switch?
Well, I tried it 3 or 4 times just to make sure.
Sure.
And every time I would get the same result.
How quickly was the switch, though?
How quickly? Oh, it was like within a matter of a couple seconds.
Perfect. That's exactly what I
Yeah,
wanted.
and I'm used to looking at people in their right eye. It's a habit, but with him, it was just testing. It was just totally an eye-opening experience.
It'll be different with each person, and it literally does only take a few seconds. So when you talk to people, just go chat, 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 chat. Then you don't even see it. I don't know if you perceive the switch, but I made a little quick switch from one to the other, and you go, yeah. No one will know any better. They'll just think, yeah, you know, he just got something. He's just like, it just felt really like, oh, I want to talk to him again. Come over here, right? So this is why I say experiment rather than have a rigid rule. Experiment, realize that some things will work better than others, and it doesn't take very long for you to get it. So you may as well have it, right? Let's just a few more questions, and then we'll move on because there's other things to be done today. Go ahead, Alex.
I just wanted to offer this up. No matter how much we believe or feel that we're having a common experience, we're actually all having individual, unique experiences. And I think it's important that we start to trust, because of the level of abstraction, our way. You know, the sooner we realize our way, and you've been pointing this out throughout the program, it doesn't matter left eye, right eye, it's all how you're wired up personally. And I hope that all of you begin to trust your inner knowing and not depend so much on what he thinks and she's experiencing. It's what you're experiencing. Because the more you can begin to loop back and reflect on that, the more you can get mastery in your own model of your world.
I think we need a round of applause for that, because That is exactly what I hope for you guys from this seminar. I'm just giving you tools and hopefully, my aim is not to give you so much tools or techniques, but to give you experiences on which you can build your own way of doing something. In 5 years' time, you should be teaching your own seminars or having your own way of doing things which look nothing like what I do, but it'll be your thing. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Jeffrey.
It was interesting hearing feedback from the person I worked with because my experience was a little different. When I was looking at her left eye, I wasn't feeling a good sense of connection. But when I looked at her right eye, I felt like we were meeting in a very equal kind of a way. And there were times where I felt her attention shifting, and where she was feeling my smile going away, what I was really doing was recentering myself and going back into the breathing. Just sort of as a quick comment back to Dr. Rashid, I've done this exercise before in other programs where I was like the only man in the room, so practice does make perfect.
So you have a lot of wives now.
A lot of ex-wives.
Now, go ahead.
Will you use eye contact at all times? Or?
Well, sometimes you can't do it like on the telephone. Think of what, I'm serious, and it's not being funny, and there are other times when it's less appropriate and you want to break. So there's sometimes when you want to break eye contact and come back again for other reasons. But really, this is the foundation that creates the hypnotic context. Now, remember, hypnosis, I think you now are beginning to realize, is anything but a casual relationship, right? So there are times when you don't want to have that kind of intimacy. You don't want it, right? You know, the bus driver, you give him he gives you your change, and suddenly goes, "Who is that guy?" That's the point at which you don't have like buses parked outside your house with people going, "Can I take you to work today?" That's just not what you want, right? So you do pick and choose your moments. It's just you know when to turn it on. And there'll be times when it's appropriate to turn it off as well. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
I think the eye fascination is great, but how do you deal with cultural challenges? Because sometimes people are offended, or it's not appropriate as it relates to their culture and what have you.
Well, all I can say on that score is I've been through a fair amount of Asia, South America, North America, and Europe, and it works great with all those places. With some individuals, you have to soften it and others take it off a little bit because it's too much for them. Now, here's the beauty of this. What happens, I mean, let me put it this way. You guys have all experienced a significant amount of emotional pressure when someone looks at you like that and keeps looking. Is that correct? Yes? Did anyone notice any defense mechanisms happening, like tearing of the eyes, blinking, desire to turn away, to maybe close your eyes, coughing, hiccuping sometimes happens, nervous mannerisms like movement, anything like that? Did you notice those sort of things beginning to happen? Those things will plane out as you do more of this. Now, the persons that you're doing this with will have the same experience, but they don't know what's happening. So they don't know, like, I'm going to stick this out. Some people will, right? But what they tend to do is, you do this, and they'll do, oh yeah, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. And they'll go back, my God, he's still doing it. I hear you, hear you, hear you, right? Now, this is where you need to use the sensitivity that we've all been talking about, because there will be times when you've done enough to bypass the critical factor, because emotional pressure bypasses the critical factor. So this is what it does. You'll have bypassed enough of it that if you do too much, they now become defensive. And then that's a shield you don't have to work through. So at that point, you said, okay, I've got enough. I might start triggering defenses now. So then you just ease off a little bit, and you start talking, well, and that stuff. And then you might look back and just check they're still with you. And this works particularly well, I'll come to you in a second. This works particularly well if you have someone, shall we say, who has got problems dealing with their emotions, an extreme version of which would be autistic people. You'll notice autistic people never make eye contact. They just can't do it. So just the way I like to think of it is the person suddenly become pseudo-autistic, and then I'll do this. I'll sit with them and I'll look with them, and I'll keep talking the same ways. And they know that if they stop, it's a kind of an implied thing. They know they stop paying attention, this is going to happen. So they carry on doing this, and I carry on doing this, and it's okay. Does that kind of make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's basically mirroring and matching in order to not impose on the
Exactly.
person.
I think of it more as like pushing and easing off. Know when to push, and when you know when you've pushed enough. Do you want to pass the microphone across?
When do you know that you pushed enough?
Okay, usually, well, there's several reasons. One is people go like that. So that's one dead giveaway. The other one is, well, the key for me is usually a feeling. Like you guys have noticed, you get connected with people. We've created a context where it's actually okay for you guys to do something a little woo-woo and a little weird. That's why you went past that thing. But with normal people in the normal world outside, you'll get a sense that, okay, this person's really getting into it, or this person's getting a little bit scared by it. You get an emotional sense of that, and you just go, okay, well, I'll just ease off a little bit and just chat naturally and normally, and then maybe try it again later on. Does that make sense? So it's a mixture between watching the reaction, pulling away, look of fear, and it has happened to me. Believe it or not, it has happened to me. It'll happen to you if you do it as well, and you'll start feeling where those boundaries are. Make sense? But as the saying goes, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. So break some eggs and you'll find out more. The best thing is, do this with strangers, because that way if the eggs are broken, you can just walk away and go, it's not my mess. Who's got over here? Go ahead.
It helped me to visualize what I wanted for him. He told me he had daughters. So I thought of him meeting his daughters and being happy and enjoying themselves. And that helped me to bypass my own critical factor. I was thinking at first, oh, it's scary. And and then when I started to visualize that, I was more able to feel comfortable with doing it.
You've just experienced what Philip was talking about earlier on. That's exactly why you do these sort of things. Perfect. Seriously, that's excellent. Any more? I can tell that this has kind of been quite a hot subject because people like this one, right? You guys liking this? Yeah. We're going to have a break in 10 minutes, so we're going to take one more question. We're going to do one more version of this. We're going to add something, and then we'll have a break, and we'll come back after the break, and we'll start doing some more internal work. Is that okay with you guys? So let's just take the last question with Michael.
This didn't happen in this exercise, but the last one we did yesterday, I found it very easy when somebody has their eyes shut to speak eloquently. Absolutely. And I realized that for me, and this may not be true of everybody here, but I move my eyes around a lot when I talk. Eye accessing cues, all that. I use my hands a lot. I use my eyes to spatially anchor things in my space, even if I'm not moving my hands. And I found that when my eyes were locked onto somebody and I was forced to speak,
it's blank,
I find like my brain cannot work the way it normally works.
I understand. I understand because I see a very similar thing. And there's two basic solutions to what you've told us. Number one, don't worry about it. There are other tools you can have other than eye contact to make this happen. And particularly if you're doing more formal kind of hypnosis, they'll be doing this quite a lot, so you're fine, right? The other thing is you can also train yourself to be able to do it this way. I had to work really hard to get it myself because for me, I used to think, I used to imagine sort of scenarios and talk about those. I'd remember things I'd seen written down, and you can see where they all are, I can't do them. Written things, scenarios, whatever. So I found it kind of like I went blank. When I look at someone, right now, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm just blank. Now, what I found for me works really well, going back to the idea of H+, you have to have an intense desire and an intense purpose, right? Right now, we haven't given you much of a purpose. But say the purpose is to get you to understand how a particular process works. So now I look at you, and my purpose is I want him to get this. Say it's about attention, right? And then I'll just talk, and somehow I end up having the right words, and somehow a metaphor will flash in. You'll probably see it from time to time. I'll fade out and come back in. I'll still have eye contact, but you can see, I'll do it with you. It just happened there. Actually, I probably broke eye contact. But you actually see it when it fades in and out. It was more close there. I'll break contact because a thought will have occurred to me, and then I'll have to come right back at it. So that's kind of how I do it at the moment. And then I hit this kind of weird flow place where the words come and I know exactly what I'm saying, and there's kind of a whole rhythm. And then eventually, that will probably break. And I'm in like a weird pause. I'm going, okay, what's next? I don't know. If I do that too much, then I get stuck again. So then what I do, go right back to H+ and go, what do I want for you? Oh, okay. I want this guy to feel great. And then maybe I see you like, these guys are great. Great. Oh, I know. And then I carry on. Does that make sense? It is, and I appreciate where you're coming from because it's a very different way of thinking, especially if you're used to thinking in different ways. So know that with practice and some of these things, it'll get easier, and it's possible. I'm going to leave you with basically reiterating what we said before, but hopefully you now understand at a different level. What we're doing with eye contact, with unbroken eye contact, is we are getting their attention. Everyone notices the attention gets riveted when someone looks at you? Yes? We're bypassing their conscious mind, or their critical factor, shall we say. Do you notice how you feel an emotional pressure when someone keeps looking at you and doesn't look away? Yes? That's emotional pressure will hit a threshold point, at which point people want to retreat, and that retreat is into trance. So the critical factor gets bypassed.